It is 5:30, so we will go ahead and call this meeting of the Jamestown School Board to order at 5:30 in the Thompson Room of the middle school. Recognize those in attendance in the audience and also those who are joining us online. Please join me in a salute to the flag. Mrs. Skunberg, would you be willing to read the school board norms?
The board-developed norms are to share and respect opinions and speak with a united voice once a decision has been reached, execute all duties of the school board in compliance with North Dakota Century Code, properly prepare for meetings, and commit to assessing board effectiveness and ensure high-quality governance for all stakeholders.
Thank you. There is nothing under public communication. Are there any conflicts of interest to declare? Any conflicts? Mrs. Skunberg?
So I have a conflict of interest under new business. I believe it's number 9 in the MOU with Together Therapy and Wellness.
Thank you. So your conflict is noted, and at that point, Mrs. Skunberg will recuse herself from discussion and voting. Any other conflicts? Mr. Meyer?
My spouse is the recipient of one of the extended contracts, if there ends up with any discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Meyer, for disclosing that. Any other conflicts? Any other conflicts? Seeing none, let's move on to the consent agenda, Roman numeral 2. As usual, under the consent agenda, if any board member would like to discuss anything before we take action on that, let us know and we can do that. If not, we will proceed with a motion. Move to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Gleason. Is there any discussion or items? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Consent agenda approved. Moving on to our regular meeting. We have nothing under letter A, recognition, letter B, correspondence, letter C, reports. Under letter D, strategic plan, we need an approval of the second reading of the updated strategic plan.
So moved.
Seconded by Dr. Larson. Motion by Dr. Larson. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Skunberg. Any discussion on approving the updated strategic plan, or the second reading, of the updated strategic plan? Any discussion? Any discussion? See no further discussion. All those in favor of the second reading of updated strategic plan, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Letter E, board education. We have guests in attendance. Mr. Cody Mickelson and Mr. Tony McIntyre from the high school. They are going to present to us on JHS and JPS communication and promotion.
Hello, thank you for welcoming us here tonight. My name is Tony McIntyre. I'm an English instructor at Jamestown High School. I also have Cody Mickelson here.
My name is Cody Mickelson. I am the German instructor at Jamestown High School, Jamestown Middle School.
We're representing a very apt cohort of a lot of professionals who are trying to put together something because we really care about what we do here, and we think what we do here is worth celebrating, and we want to figure out a way to celebrate that. While we were in this room last year, Cody and I both took part in the Guiding Coalition. And in the Guiding Coalition, we had some of the most engaged parents that you can have who dedicated several sessions to it. And even as we were going through the Guiding Coalition, it became clear that they were very, very excited about opportunities. And we went, hey, we already have these. This isn't new. JPS already does this. And JPS does this to a high level in a lot of ways. And when you have your really engaged parents not knowing all the things that we could do, we felt like, hey, we got to tell the story. We got to tell the story because students are great. They're adolescents, but we know that question, what'd you do in school today, is not a very verbose answer, even when your students are AP high flyers. You don't always get great answers to that. We know that admin gets a strong voice in the messaging that comes out from JPS, and we went, hey, where's the teacher voice in this? And how can we build a channel for that teacher voice? All right. So with that, we got together over the course of the summer with about 10 professionals, and we started kicking ideas around on like, how do we tell the story? Because in Jamestown, if you have a kid in public schools, you're concerned about public schools. But in order for the community to be really, really healthy, we need you to be concerned before you have a kid in JPS. And for the health of the community, we need you after your kids have graduated. We need everybody engaged in that conversation. And if you don't have a student to ask, what'd you do in school today? How in the world are you going to find out if you're not on the email list? So we decided we need to create some channels that are robust, that engage not just the parents of our students, but our whole community. So today we started taking it to the streets. And Cody will take us through the process a little bit on how we started this process and what we hope to do with it.
Yeah, I would say part of this is just really grassroots effort. So this plan development, I won't read every point on the plan. We've just been keeping track of all the steps along the way. So, you know, somebody wanted to follow in these footsteps. They know what we've tried, when we tried it, and could fix whatever we come up with, or hopefully can use it successfully. But in predating June was the guiding coalition, so I didn't include that in here, and then a lot of conversation in our school about how we can bring this message to people who wouldn't normally get it. We know that the best connection to our parents is through our students, not always the most accurate messaging, but we also want to make sure that we can get some good conversation, not just with students and parents, but from anybody in the community. So after we had this conversation among staff, we decided to put something together, and we just kept coming back to keeping this really simple, because the community is likely not going to open a newsletter and an attachment to an email. I hate to say it, but they're really not reading your strategic plan every night like you guys are, and that's not their fault. That's just the way it is. So we want to really hit them with a message that they can get behind and have a conversation with on an everyday level. So in June, we started by meeting with a group of teachers that were willing to give us some time in the summer, so thank you to them. And in July, we really started putting things together. And so we engaged with Newman's to get a contract made, and they were very easy to work with, so thank you to Newman Signs for being so awesome to work with, especially when my email replies were not as snappy as I wish they would have been. We created some planning, and I'll show you a little bit of that in a second, but we had some planning about what we wanted to do, knowing that it was going to change. And so August, as we're in right now, we got all the drafts ready for what we wanted to publish, knowing that they're going to change, but we wanted to go into our staff and say, hey, this is what we have so far. How can you plug something into it, or what could be better? We got a contract with Newman Signs signed. Thank you, Adam, for doing that so quickly. And we did make our first post in social media on the 13th on Facebook. We're still investigating who owns the Instagram. We'll get to that later. But the first billboard actually went live today. So if you're driving west on 13th, you'll see that one, as well as if you're driving north on 281, you'll see it out there as well. So this is what it looks like. Tony was kind to get up this morning. I also got up early. I want to brag, I got up early to do this, but my picture did not turn out as well, so he gets the credit for the picture for sure. But we wanted to create kind of the cover of a book with this by saying this is going to be our journey through the year, and we want to keep everybody connected, and we're hoping that there's an anticipatory set that will come along with what people see here. This picture was taken at our pep rally last year, and it was really, I have to say, in my 19 years at Jamestown Public Schools, the best pep rally I've ever attended. And I'm not kidding, and I'm not belaboring the point that no one else tried to do a good job, but it was really an awesome experience, and so that picture just stuck out. So we decided to throw that one up there, and hopefully can repeat something this year. We did post the left-hand graphic online along with a message that went along about the first day of school, and we're really trying to develop a culture of really being excited to see our students and having them there, and hopefully our community is excited that they're there too. I mean, obviously the radio ads go out that, watch out for students in the street and make sure that you're being aware of what's happening, and there's more to go to that, and we want to be part of that picture. The other two pictures are things that will go out later in the year, one of them next week or later this week maybe, and then the last one on this picture being kind of an opportunity for us to celebrate the successes of our students and their Choice Ready status. We kind of thought that Choice Ready was a great way to link our messaging to something that the community really doesn't know a lot about unless you're in the world of ed, and that makes sense, but we really think we can simplify that message and engage some conversation about that as well. So if you do get a chance to check out our whole plan when we get that point, we'd encourage you to check that out, but we've got some hopefully good ideas for that. Our current needs, actually we were really fortunate. Mr. Heinert this morning, we had talked with him prior to today, and he was going to give us some time on Wednesday, but designed some back to school activities that helped us with our first part of staff input. So we designed something that we felt could be a template to fill in as we go through this, knowing that we're all going to be busy throughout the year, knowing that these things are going to come up quickly. We wanted to be able to just throw information in there as we needed to, but Mr. Heinert had some good pointed questions today, and we've got staff feedback that we have yet to go through. And then on Wednesday, we'll get a little bit of time to give this kind of spiel to the staff at the high school as well. Our logistics have been interesting, so getting to connect with community groups to deal with this will be interesting, but we think that we can engage some community groups as well. And we're also going to find out who we can engage, I think, through this process as well. So we've already got our eyes on the analytics of social media to see who we're reaching rather, and how we can utilize that. And then we are kind of deriving what kind of metrics to gauge the success of this with. It's kind of how many likes do we get, how many shares do we get, how many followers do we have, and those are all important things, but how do we report out on that data to make sure what we're doing is worth all of our time here. So that's yet to come. We're hoping really that conversation that we hear in the community, hey, I saw that billboard, what's this, what's that, I saw this somewhere, that can really be the sign of success. So we're gonna encourage a lot of our parents to get involved, and we're hoping that our messages aren't, spam at some point. We don't want that to be, but we want to be present enough to not be invisible. And so that's where we're aiming now. We have 2 more meetings this week about this as well. These are some of the themes. I didn't put all of them up there because it would be a lot of them, and these are likely to be in an evolving state. But the nice thing about the feedback that we gathered today, I think you'll agree, is a lot of what we heard today reflects something that falls under these umbrellas. And in no particular order, welcoming our Blue Jays back is awesome. It's one of the greatest times of the year. But being able to celebrate their accomplishments later in the year is hands down one of my favorite things to see. So, and that ranges from graduation to state testing to Choice Ready success to scholarships to all that stuff that seemingly gets glossed over in the last 9 weeks of the school year when everybody's ready to hit the road. But there's a lot of great stuff that happens that I think we can develop a communicative journey to at the end point. Our future of this, so I know there is a question about, okay, this year is this year. Let's say it's a success, be an optimist about that. But what happens in the future? Well, a few of the things could be that we could carry this out in this form or another one, that the hope is that it can be something that other levels may be interested in engaging in. I know our elementary and middle school probably have a lot to say as well. Tony and I did not want to pretend to be the experts of them, and so would love to engage with them, and I'm sure they'll be at that stage in their journey soon. But we're hoping that we can celebrate what is happening and just kind of figure out how to capture that public eye a little bit more than we are. And then in the future, whoever decides to take the reins on this, whether that be a continuing group or some engagement with an instructor in an elective course, whether that be yearbook, whether that be an activity, whether that be a class, we thought was maybe the most appropriate way to continue the success that we have. I think there'll always be a little bit of shared opportunity there for that. So we're just hoping that pathway becomes evident as we proceed this year.
I think also to note, educators are humble people in general, and so one of the things we're trying to do is create a culture at JHS that is willing to share pictures of the awesome thing you're doing. Share a little bit about this awesome lab you do, so that later on that parent is going, hey, have you guys done the cat dissection yet? I want to talk to you about the cat dissection, as opposed to asking, what did I do in school today? Hey, I know that the cat dissection is coming up. What have you guys been learning? So really hoping that by giving us this proof of concept, we can also get that buy-in from the staff that makes this a really robust communication channel for them as well.
And two notes to hit on is that we know that we created a team, or we have a team assembled, I should say, that's willing to take this on at maybe the curation level, but we really do need everybody in the building to do this, and likewise out of the building as well. And we also want there to be an emphasis, well, Tony talked about teacher voice and perspective, we're focused on the learning and the students. So we're gonna try and deliver that message from the vantage point of, hey, these kids are in our classes and we've seen what they're doing all year, and we really want to highlight it to the rest of the community. So we're very much at the beginning of this. We hope that, we think the billboard looks good. We hope you can drive by and check it out. And we hope that we can continue some positive reports later this year when we see how things are going.
Okay, thank you. And I know you have somewhere else to be at 6, but are there any questions or comments from the board? Dr. Larson?
Thank you for your work on this, and I think I've had conversations with each of you about how can we talk about in a meaningful way all the work that we're doing in our schools, and I appreciate you taking the initiative to move forward with this. I think you will need help from the other buildings, high schools, that's awesome, and then middle school, and I know you're in the early stages. Do you have some ideas for engaging those other buildings?
It's a good question. In the description that I provided to Mr. Gaylor earlier this summer, I don't know if it was June or July, only 2, so 50-50 guess. But one of the things that we suggested was using the media relations intern to try and engage with those levels. One of the things we thought that would be an opportunity was to have discussions about what we're doing at the high school level, and seeing if any of that overlays with the other opportunities in the middle school or the elementary. One thing that is a barrier for us in particular is just being required to be at the high school during the day when all the great stuff is happening at the other levels. And we did feel that maybe there's an opportunity for an individual with a little more flexibility in that schedule to try and get some of that, the pictures, videos, or any of that media content collected. So the answer to that question is we hope.
That'd be great. Thank you. And I know you're in the early stages, and I did see the billboard crossing over the bridge today, and it looked fantastic, so thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the board? I just had one question is if there's anybody in the community that we could recommend, how would we, to engage with you guys? Should we just have them contact you?
Yeah, just send
directly,
us a
or
message. We're always happy to hear. I won't pretend to be a social media guru or even a billboard guru by any means. We rely a lot on the expertise of others, and always would like to hear about their experience, feedback, or what other opportunities or what they know. So yeah, just let us know.
Well, be sure to thank the other members of your committee for us too that couldn't be here tonight. So
We will do that.
very good. Thanks.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And have a good week.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to letter F, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Gaylor.
Thank you, and thank you, Tony and Cody, for that update. No doubt that when people look across the state, Jamestown is the best school and district to choose, and within our community, that we don't always have people that know the great things that are going on every day. This is the district to choose, and this will just help get that message out there. A couple things. One thing that was in the consent agenda was the Little Blue Jays Nest Handbook. Just a reminder on how rates are set. That's set by committee annually, and so that committee looks at competitive rates, and then it also looks at the state reimbursement rates to be able to determine those. So I just wanted to touch base on that because it had been a question of the board in the past. The strategic plan, which was presented tonight for second reading, I'll be sending that out to the staff later tonight. It's something that I'm going to update the whole district on tomorrow morning. So thank you for approving that so that I can have that discussion with them tomorrow. Normally, I think strategic plan process would be a little bit earlier in the year and maybe be approved in the July meeting. I did do some board education. It's a kind of a draft or a tentative board education schedule that's aligned to that updated strategic plan. And so basically, what we're looking at is one meeting, looking at a set of metrics, and then having, like we did last year, a corresponding board education that aligns with that set of metrics, or we're prepping you for the next meeting where the metric might align with what the board education is. We don't have names filled out on those, but we do have different stakeholder groups that should be represented in doing that board education. And I'm happy to take any board feedback on that plan as well, or to go over it in more detail at a future meeting. The snow removal contract was something that a board member brought up at a previous meeting. We will be issuing that out for bids, and the rationale to put that out for bids would be that it's likely to possibly exceed the bid threshold, just depending on fuel prices and lots of things, and so we're so close on that. That's been an annual contract the last couple of years, and we'll be putting that out to bids fairly soon. We haven't been dissatisfied with the current contract. It's just that where we're at with the numbers and so close to the bid threshold. Special Reserve Fund, board member asked for additional kind of context on how that's used. And so I did reach out to Brant Dick, who is kind of fairly well-known superintendent and expertise in school finance. He talked a lot about the Special Reserve Fund as it used to be when it was used to get districts before we had on-time funding. So before we were funded for the students that we actually have. Some of the growing districts were always a year behind, and they did use that fund. They did levy for that fund to be able to make up for some of that gap. His perspective on the purpose or the legislative intent of special reserve is really, it's not to balance a budget, it's not to use for perpetual or planned expenditures. It's really for unforeseen types of things. So unforeseen, boiler replacement, unforeseen staffing situations that come up because of certain student situations. That's the intent or spirit from his perspective. But it is something that is a discretionary levy for school districts. Community eligibility provision, the CEP, was something the board had discussion about earlier this year, and the question that was presented was centered around does the meal price that we're setting have any impact on CEP? And the short answer on that is no. You can certainly read through that portion of the report and let me know if you have any further questions. But a second part to that question was, would we see any impact if there was a universal, if the universal meals measure that's on the November 3rd general election passes, and CEP may be a mechanism that the state chooses to use to fund a portion of that cost if that does pass, and of course that's up to the voters coming up. But I would say that either way, it shouldn't influence any of our pricing. Our pricing is built to be able to make sure that we're giving the most economical, and healthy and safe meals that we can to our students. And so that's why the recommendation came from food service for the meal pricing that we had the last time. Infinite Campus implementation, the board asked for an update on that. I think from the teacher perspective, it's been going fairly well. The basic functions that they need for being able to have kids rostered and scheduled in classes, and all the schedule changes that happen last minute with getting kids into their classes and taking attendance and setting up grades and that sort of thing feels very familiar. The buttons are in different spots, that's called different things. Where we've had the most challenge is in all the back end work and making sure that all that data from PowerSchool imported correctly, and double and triple checking those things, and setting up things like fees or registration processes. And so that's been new and a big lift across the district. There isn't a person that hasn't been significantly impacted in terms of time and commitment in learning those new processes. We've appreciated the grace that families have given as we roll that out, and definitely appreciated the leadership from both Lisa Hofer and Brian Knox in kind of problem solving through all of that, but then down to every level where people have been problem solving to make that work and have a great school start. So we're really happy with our progress. I feel like we're in a great spot in our district, largely due to that leadership within our district. We're very fortunate to have Lisa and Brian working on that. Indy Counts grant was a grant that I'll mention a little bit later in the board agenda. It came up, it was kind of a timely submission, and so we did submit for the amount that we were eligible for that. Indy Counts is a science of math program. So the last legislative session, there was legislation and it's phased implementation. The first phase is really focused on 4th through 8th grade math achievement in the state, and using science of math training to be able to move the needle on that. And so we did apply, we're eligible for that. We actually had Nancy Anderson, who was a 5th grade teacher, now Dean of Students, was trained in that last spring. We were one of the first districts to get trained in that, and Nancy recommended that we continue to pursue that. So it's going to be an opportunity for us. Hopefully, we'll be awarded that grant. Work-based learning course codes that are coming up later in the agenda. This is not any additional courses. It's just that we used to have one course code that those fell under, and now with changes at the state level, they want to be able to track which program areas are students having work-based learning experiences in. And so those course codes are more specific to the program area. So not adding anything, just changing how we're coding so it's more accurate and we can report better by program for that. There's a couple of special education technician MOUs in there. Cindy Loreen with a personnel item for her hire form, and then later we were able to add Frederica's MOU in there. That was a transfer. Frederica was previously employed for the district, so that's why that personnel item is set up that way. The district has been reaching out and working to schedule a human trafficking presentation. This is required by Century Code and was discussed in the last legislative session. And there's a group called the 31-8 Project that leads those conversations. So those will be scheduled hopefully this spring, and just making the board aware of how we're meeting that requirement. Later in the agenda, you'll see MOU with Together Therapy and Wellness. Much like the how we work with the village, we do set aside a portion of our behavioral health grant to support non-insured families with that need those services. So the way that grant works is that we are the payer of last resort. Families that are referred, of course, first need to run those through their insurance, or they need to run them through Medicaid if applicable. There's also, for certain therapies, there's Title IV-E funding. And so families really should seek out those therapies if they're needed. We want to be sure that we're providing that, and that's why that MOU is extensive and describes kind of that relationship of how we can do those referrals. So the behavioral health grant would cover those costs, and this is a gap that we've identified particularly within our K-1-2 families that might have students with complex behavioral challenges or just complex needs in general would benefit from those types of services. And we had an opportunity to provide that, and so that's why that's on the agenda. We were the recipient of $70,000 zero-hour fitness and wellness grant, And so that was through the Rural Health Transformation. You may have heard of that's a big statewide opportunity for school, or for a lot of different entities to gain funding. It's specifically focusing on our rural students and non-athletes, but it will be capped, but it wouldn't be, we wouldn't prohibit anyone who doesn't meet those criteria, but we do need to cap that and prioritize students that are rural and non-athletes. And it's very specific about the time frame in which it's offered, just adjacent to the school day. And so we would be, we're excited for that. It'll be a program both at the middle school and the high school. Technical skills training grant, seeking board permission to apply for a technical skills training grant, having contacted the state. Since we have a similar program already in our CDL program that was funded by this grant, they said that the only guidance they could provide was that it needed to be very distinct. And what I'm proposing is that we be able to acquire a bus for the district with air brakes so that we can do a training for bus drivers in the summer when that bus wouldn't be in use. And then we would be seeking some combination of matching funds within the community for the technical skills training grant so that we could, leverage an opportunity to provide great transportation for our students and activities and be able to train people to be able to provide that transportation, just to remove some of the hurdles that we've seen with transportation. Board compensation policy, this is something that I'm recommending that the board consider. I realize that the board had already discussed this at the meeting. I just feel strongly that the intent of compensation is both to recognize the effort and time that board members put in, which is very significant. Beyond these meetings, the community must recognize that our board members are spending a lot of time reviewing, preparing, asking questions, as well as in the committee process. I've included a board compensation comparison from other districts as well, and included a first reading of a proposed policy that I think addresses the spirit of the discussion that happened at the last meeting, which is really that board members would be able to waive that compensation if they felt they wanted to do that at an individual level. I'll talk later with Mr. Roldson about the High School Activities East Region petition process. And you guys heard from the high school, exciting things going on with their marketing campaign. Later in the agenda, we can discuss the extended contracts that are brought before the board. There are 2 for counseling, so please note that there are 2 separate links. I didn't get that distinguished in there. There's 1 for library, and then there are several for high school. So our high school enrollment remains stable, and determining which courses run is done based on student requests. We've also seen an increase of student requests because students are not taking the NDCDE courses at the same rate that they were in the past. This will be a point of discussion for the board, and I'm happy to answer any questions the board might have at that time as well. And then you'll note that any of our classified staff, coaches' activities are all in the classified staff hire forms that are included in the link at the end of the superintendent report. And to the community, please remember to read to your kids, sing to your kids, and get them involved. And I'd stand for any questions for the board on the superintendent's report.
Any questions for Mr. Gaylor? Mrs. Bear?
Just a couple. First, from a parent's perspective on Infinite Campus, I already love it way better than Power School, so that's great. But I do have a question on extended contracts, not necessarily the ones that we're seeing here, but at, I know at the high school level, they're compensated, but at the middle school level, for those teachers that teach extra classes, what I'm just wondering why we don't do any compensation for that.
So there are situations at the middle school where teachers would teach 6 of 7 classes. They'd be in electives, things like PE, for example. And that's been a precedent within the district that that's considered a full load for a PE teacher. At the middle school, they also have team time, which is an assignment. And so other teachers teach 5 of 7, but then they're assigned team time for that 6th, I guess, assignment, so to speak. So I'm not aware, that's never been a question that's been brought forward. I think that there is a great board discussion that would need to happen around the equity of that. The reason that I'm bringing those contracts forward is that we have students in the seats that have requested those courses. The high school gets more complicated with the need to have a highly qualified teacher that specializes, and so it doesn't always lend itself well to being more flexible with assignments. People have to be licensed in those areas. Specifically, the math contracts are made up of a missing math position. We haven't been able to fill one math position to this point, and instead used extended contracts. So from a budgeting standpoint, that one is neutral. The other extended contracts are due to student requests. So the art and dance and those specific, extended science specific, we did not replace a science teacher last year, and they're just limited on the number of sections. So when we bring in a bigger class than what we graduated, sometimes those science classes like physical science and biology need to be adjusted so that we can have safe, labs and limit the number of students to the number of safe labs that assignments that we have. That was a long-winded answer to your specific question, but I'm happy to answer other questions as well.
Any other questions for Mr. Gaylor or comments? Dr. Larson?
Just want to revisit the science. I'm aware that our science classes are really good sized, but when it comes to lab, are we limited by lab station size for classes? Is there some limitations
Most of the
that?
science classrooms have fixed lab
Fixed labs.
stations.
Okay, that's what I
Yep,
was thinking.
and there
Okay.
are, and the same thing would be true for CTE, which are also lab-based classes. We try to cap those with a reasonable safety piece in mind.
Okay, thanks for that.
Mr. McKenna?
Yeah, I think thinking about in the context of the extended contracts and trying to kind of wrap my head around kind of the rationale or the explanation of what is a fair use of the special reserve fund. So would extended contracts be regularly budgeted things, or would you see those more as unforeseen or temporary expenditures?
There are a number of extended contracts that have held a place in the budget for a number of years because we do anticipate some of those more nuanced. So we had more requests in this specific area than what we had anticipated or had in the past. We always really appreciate a dual licensed teacher. Some of those extended contracts that you see, we have a science teacher, but he's teaching art. Well, that's because that teacher is dual licensed, and we're now able to meet those needs of the unique student requests. So in this year, we do have a budget placeholder in the preliminary budget for extended contracts because there was some anticipation of would we be able to fill or would we have the right positions filled to meet the student requests. Do you have anything to add on that?
Any other questions? Dr. Larson?
I just want to comment, I do appreciate, it takes a lot of extra work to meet all the student requests and a lot of extra planning, but I do appreciate that we do go through that effort of making sure that if we have a certain number of students requesting something, that we really work to offer it. And I think that's really important. So thank you for your work on that.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Gaylor or comments? Seeing none, we will move on to letter G, old business, no old business. Letter H, new business under activities. North Dakota High School Activities Association Region Alignment Process Memo, and a report from Mr. Rolson, and this will be for information only.
Thank you. And so I'll just kick things off. The board had asked, can we know what the process is for this? And I'm glad that that was a timely question, because what we learned is that, if we want to engage in this process, there needs to be a timely discussion and consideration of it. So the way that request process would actually happen is that the board would discuss and determine that, and then Mr. Rolson and I would put together a request that would go to the High School Activities Association. And they would then consider that at one of their regular board meetings, which they have one coming up in September. From there, they take that to what's called a realignment committee, and that realignment committee then determines what recommendation they would bring to the board. The next board opportunity for high school activities would be early December, and so that early December meeting, then they would make a determination based on the recommendation of the realignment committee. That also would correspond with then our potential ability, with a couple of ifs in there, with board determinations both at our level, our submission of the request, and then board determination at the high school activities level. So potentially by next fall, if those ifs fall into place, we could have an opportunity to be in a different region. High school activities also could take a different direction with that and not approve that request. So not a guarantee, but submitting it soon would be something for the board to consider. And then Mr. Rolson had done some kind of analysis on pros and cons. These are the types of things that we also need to put together in a report to the board, and would be happy to take any questions that the board might have or suggestions about other things to include in that request as well. Mr. Rolson?
Okay. Yep. The handout that you've been presented with kind of compares the two conferences in a basic scenario. As an example, a lot of our sports, we play like a double round robin type schedule. So for example, in the sport of basketball, you're going to play a Bismarck High home and away. So you play the entire conference in a home and away situation, double round robin. So utilizing those numbers is what I use for comparison here. So if we were to do that in the EDC with all their schools compared to the WDA, you kind of see what the mileage comparison would be, as well as the travel time. Sports like the basketballs, volleyball, boys hockey, baseball, softball, and the soccers are sports that would kind of mirror this type of scheduling. It probably would not affect sports like girls hockey. That's a statewide schedule. We're going to place teams in the West anyway, regardless of what region affiliation we have and so on. So kind of gives you an idea. Other sports such as swimming and diving and track, they're more wide open, and you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go. There's really no true schedule that you have to follow other than where you go to compete at the region meet. So with that, you can kind of see that there's a basic difference here. The advantage of being the EDC for a typical schedule, you're going to save roughly about almost 1,200 miles a season being in the EDC versus the WDA. If you were to take a look at that, what our travel expenses are, given this past year's busing prices and so on, at $291 a mile for travel, and like little over almost $30.50 for driver time, you're looking at about $3,700 that would be saved per season or per schedule, just in transportation alone. So based on that, taking a look at all those sports, that could roughly save our district probably about 32,000 in savings if we were to travel EDC versus WDA. I also, there's a note way at the bottom. I also wanted to share with you, I had the opportunity to go through our hotel bills from last year. And based on the schedule, as well as the difference in format of the postseason that the EDC runs in some sports versus the WDA, we could potentially see a savings of about $45,000 in hotel bills a year with that. So that's something that kind of, I think, needs to be looked at closely. As an example, the basketball tournament format, the East Region is a lot different than WDA. The WDA or West Region is a Thursday, Friday, Saturday tournament. In the EDC, they go opening round at the higher seeds at home sites. So there's potential that if in the EDC, if Jamestown were there, we could potentially host a first round event right here and not have to travel at all, which is a huge savings. Also then they go Friday and Saturday nights for the tournament itself. And depending on what we wanted to do, if the tournaments were in Fargo, honestly, it's close enough, and we would have to further discussions with our coaches and what they feel the advantage and disadvantage is. But there's potential, really, even in those tournaments, do we necessarily have to stay overnight in a hotel? We could travel back and forth even on a Friday, Saturday in a regional tournament and not have to have any hotel until a state tournament would be involved. So some things to consider. So with that, just that alone, I mean, we're looking at potentially, probably about $75,000 in savings in a activities budget if allowed to do that. The comparative scorecard that I put together, there's some factors to consider, EDC versus the WDA, and I think overall, the EDC does show that it's probably a better fit for us or more advantageous. However, there's some things to think about with the WDA too that are very good. You think of, you talk to some of our coaches, depending on the sport too, the competitive advantage of the East versus the West. Some of our teams are going to fare better in the West than the East, and vice versa, and some others. So that's some things to consider. We talk about loss of school time probably is going to be less when we are at the EDC level. Something also to consider is, I don't know if you guys have you seen that anywhere? This was something we posted out on social media. This was our GPAs from this past school year. 3.646 was our overall athletic GPA, which means we're doing something right. And I think part of that, the structure of the WDA season does allow us not to miss a lot of school typically during the week. They're in class, but a lot of those longer trips, those are Friday, Saturday trips. So yeah, we might be missing some school on Friday, but we don't have to worry about the next day. So I think that's been an advantage of the WDA for us, that you're probably not going to see in the EDC. The EDC, you'd be traveling more during the week and a lot fewer contests on the weekend. And some people might think that that's an advantage too. You open up a lot more Saturdays. It might be more appealing to coaches or people that are wanting to coach. It might be more appealing to bus drivers. They don't have to take those long overnight trips or kill a weekend because of it. So I think all some things to consider. And you can see in the pros and cons there too as we've put together there. But I think overall, one way or another, it's just what fit do we want? I personally, I don't have a preference either way. I see advantages to both of them. It's a matter of what direction this board would like to go for our students. So with that, I guess I just leave it at that. I'll field any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Roldson?
If we moved over to the EDC, would there be any teams that we currently have that would not have a competitive counterpart in the EDC?
No. One team that would end up probably not changing a lot, our football team. Football is a scenario where, based on where we're at right now with the number of teams and so on, we're a West school. Going forward, this year, it'll be the first year of girls hockey where they will have a region tournament, okay? We will play a statewide schedule, but you have a region to qualify for the state tournament. We are in the East region for girls hockey this year, just because of the number of teams.
Dr. Larson?
And this would be for like speech and music
It would be
and
fine
for,
arts,
for everything.
everything
Yep.
if that's what we
Yep,
choose to pursue.
just confirming that.
We have a variety of ways we could go if we wanted to, and in the past we have, where we kind of pick and choose, or at least we let the High School Activities Association determine what sports would be east, what sports would be west. When I first came here 25 years ago, back home here, we did have that situation where some teams were WDA and some teams were EDC. So.
I appreciate you putting this together because there is community interest in this, and this is some really good talking points of factual information, so I appreciate
Okay.
that.
You're welcome.
Anything else for Mr. Roldson? Mr. Roberts?
Yeah, I support, going through this process and soliciting this for consideration and moving to the east, having kids in sports and seeing them when they have to play the Williston, the faraway teams, and, getting home at 2 o'clock in the morning and then going to school the next day. Not a really great learning environment there for them. And then vice versa, too. I mean, Williston has to, Watford City, they have to come our way and get home as well, too. So it's kind of a mutual benefit in terms of that travel time and the hours associated with it. So that's kind of where I started raising this as maybe something we want to consider, and then as well as the cost savings and seeing, the overnight stays and all that kind of stuff. So I think, like I say, I support going through this process and soliciting this for consideration.
Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts? Owen?
Where else in this process does this board need to weigh in, or how, if we're submitting this petition, what could we provide with that package to potentially assist with that?
I think the main thing is just to lend the support of this is the direction that we would like to pursue as a board, as a school district, and give myself and Mr. Gaylor that direction in which to pursue. We certainly, actually, we've kind of, I've got the start of a draft letter ready to go, and we could tweak that and so on, and make sure that we hit on the points that this board would like us to emphasize. One thing I think also we need to consider in this process too is one of the things that's not on this chart in the EDC is a couple other communities. Castleton, as an example, Central Cass will become an EDC school here this next school year as well. So there's an additional team into the EDC already. Kindred itself, they talk about that community being quite a ways away from having the numbers to be there, but I think they're on track quicker than sooner than later, even though that might be 4 or 5 years down the road at the earliest. But those are some things to consider as well, and if we do make this move, what's going to happen down the road 5, 6 years? Is it a situation where we get bounced back to the west again? And I would hate for us to be that yo-yo. But there again, if we have the opportunity to go east and that's what we want to do, I would certainly support that.
Any other, Dr. Larson?
Mr. President, it's my understanding that we would have to probably decide this, right, by the next board meeting to get this in time for the next thing. So, right? Is that correct? Okay.
Yes, they would want to be pulling their board agenda together probably the 9th or 10th of September. We have a meeting on the 8th, and so we would bring something to the board that's a recommendation at the next meeting that the board could then discuss and add or take away from. And but as Mr. Roldson said, it's there's a lot of variables. We could determine that we want these specific sports to move that way, or you can do it categorically and just say high school activities, you determine what's best, because their realignment committee may make some recommendations for certain sports and not others, but that's theirs to determine.
Part of the timeline of things as well is you know, their upcoming December meeting is important for them to ultimately make a decision on this, because that's about the time where, like, the fall schedules for the next year are pretty much kind of draft and almost ready and in place for the next school year. Usually, typically by February, March, the schedules for the winter sports are already almost done.
The only thing I would add to this would be, is there a way between now and then we can gauge the pulse of the community and some of those stakeholders, or through coaching and whatnot, do we feel that's a route we want to go? I would just like folks to have an opportunity to weigh in if they want to, and make sure that we're at least somehow saying, other than this meeting, that we're considering doing this. Do you have any thoughts? I just want to make sure that, because this really is a community decision also, and maybe we can discuss how we want to go about getting some of that input. That'd be my only other comment.
Yep.
Yeah, I
Anything else?
noted that
Yeah.
it might be possible to pull a simple community survey together and get that out to at least the district stakeholders that we have access to.
Okay. Anything else? Thank you.
Okay, moving on to number 2, buildings and grounds, nothing. 3, curriculum, assessment and instruction. The work-based learning course code changes that Mr. Gaylor mentioned in his report. Again, this is not new curriculum per se. This is simply assigning a different number to each work-based learning situation or program. So we do need to take action on it. Is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on the course code change for work-based learning? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion passes. Letter B, North Dakota Counts Grant, informational only. Anything to add?
Nope, just that it was, information is in my superintendent's report. Normally, these grant applications would come to the board in advance. So this was a short timeline from the state to be able to make that application. So we did make that application. The board would be able to determine if we accept the award, if we are awarded that.
Thank you. Moving on to number 4, finance. Information, general fund balance, monthly financials, preliminary budgets. This was also the subject of our board orientation at 4:15. So unless Christy has anything to add or there are any questions, this is informational only. Okay, thank you. Number 5, operations, approval to submit the technical skills grant. Thank you. A motion by Mr. Veldkamp. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Skunberg. Any discussion on the technical skills grant and submitting that? Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Motion passes. Number 6, personnel, approval to hire for 2026-27 school year upon a successful background check and appropriate licensure, Cindy Lorene and Frederica Nicholson. Again, Mr. Gaylor went through these, both special ed technician positions. Frederica is a transfer from another, just a transfer up in the district, and Cindy is a new hire. So any discuss, or is there a motion? Is there a motion to approve the hiring? Thank you, Dr. Larson makes that motion. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Roberts. Any discussion on the motion? Discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 6, letter B, approval of semester 1 extended contracts for 2026-2027 school year. Number 1, let's start there, JHS extended contracts. We had some discussion during the superintendent report. Is there a motion? Moved by Mrs. Gleason. Is there a second? Second by Mr. McKenna. Now, is there any discussion? Mr. Roberts?
So just a little background on some of these extended contracts for JHS. We did have several discussions on this in the past year or so in the Finance Committee, with a focus on equity and how we're consistent throughout the district, even at all levels, elementary, middle school, high school, which did culminate to a budget alignment discussion point. This is one of the line items within that as far as extending contracts and what's in the negotiating agreement and what we're doing on a traditional type basis or historically what we've done. And there was a discussion to actually end this practice because it isn't fair to all stakeholders involved, and we need to work towards a better solution than extended contracts. So just some background there, and I'm still on that side of it in terms of, it is, 6 sections is what a lot of teachers do today. And so I don't necessarily support assigning these extended contracts to, for that purpose, so.
Any other discussion on the extended contracts? Again, for the JHS extended contracts, any other discussion? Any other discussion? Christy, could we do a roll call vote, please?
Jason Rohr,
Yes.
Mindy Skungberg,
Yes.
Aaron Roberts. No. Stephen Belkamp. Melissa Gleason. Owen McKenna.
Yes.
Jamie Bear. Heidi Larson. So I have 7-0. Jacob is not voting.
Thank you. Motion passes. Moving on to letter B, counseling extended contracts and library extended contracts. I think we can do 2 and 3 together unless anyone objects. Yep. Mr. Gaylor, is there any other context you wanted to add it to these two?
So these were in memos that were discussed at the last board meeting, and what I'm doing is just bringing forward the recommendation for those hires. So the board had discussion and approved the direction in the memo for me to be able to offer these, because they are different than what we've done in the past.
Is there a motion on the counseling and library extended contracts? Moved by Mrs. Gleason. Is there a second? Second by Mr. Veldkamp. Any further discussion on the extended contracts? Mr. Roberts?
So just with the counseling on, because these are extended day contracts here, not extended sessions, so a little bit different than the previous ones, but in combination with the upcoming agenda item discussion related to counseling, one of the things that I don't have a good feel for, and I'll admit, as far as a needs assessment on counseling services or what we need to have for the district. It's not as straightforward as we need to teach this class and here it is. It's more of a ambiguous type of need. Is there a way that we can somehow assess and define, what is our true need for counseling, as opposed to just saying, let's get as much as we can? What do we truly need? How can we define that?
Absolutely. I would be glad to pull together some board education on that. I know my last memo about this subject referenced that the state requirement is a 1 to 300 ratio. The ASCA, which is the counseling model, the preferred requirement would be 1 to 250 would be the maximum per counselor. In a lot of cases, we're below that maximum amount. These particular extended contracts relate to our service that we provide to Gackle Public Schools through the James Valley Career Tech Center, and we had that arrangement in the past. And so we needed to meet the ratio for them for their K-6 and their 7th through 12th grade counseling. That's why there's 2 particular in this one. We do have the additional therapy services, which are through the village, and then the board is discussing one more through Together Therapy and Wellness, and those are funded through the behavioral health grant. So the general fund expenditure and the ratio that we have for counseling services is based on those requirements from the state. So I would say that at all levels, we have adequate counseling services for the students when it comes to ratio. But as you guys have known and the board has discussed, the needs of our students still outpaces the ability for us to provide that for students at times, and that's why we had contracted with the village for additional therapy, and now I'm bringing that other one. I think that it's a little bit nebulous. It is harder to define than this many students in a class, but those ratios do provide some context. And I think in that last memo, if I remember right, I had referenced where we were at in ratio at each of the buildings. I can dig into that a little bit more and see maybe if there's a way for us to try to quantify that better for the board.
Yeah, I was just thinking in terms of like IEPs, number of IEPs, or is there some other quantification that we can utilize to say that this, this is, we're in a healthy zone, or no, we need to do more, or are we overdoing, just kind of help us assess when we're presented with these kind of things, are we making the right decision? And I don't really have a good feel for knowing where we should be, where we need to be. So yeah, if we can quantify that somehow, some of our metrics that we already have, and that will help us define, because you got the ratios, but then there's also
Additional student needs.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion on the extended contract days for counseling and library? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, policies and procedures, approval of recommended policies. This is the second reading of KAAA-AR, visitors in school regulations. Second reading, so we need action. Is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Second by Mrs. Bear. Any further discussion on the policy in question? Any other discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. The first reading of the amended policy BDD, which Mr. Gaylor referenced in his superintendent report regarding school board compensation. Again, that is for your information only, and we will bring that up at a future. Any other questions or discussion at this time? Any other questions, discussion? Mr. Roberts?
Again, just some background here. So we discussed this in our finance meeting. It was raised, and then the guidance that we gave to Mr. Gaylor was just is there a way to present an alternative or some options that we may not have considered? Did we want to open this up for some additional conversation based on some new information that we weren't aware of?
All right. We'll consider that at the next meeting again. Number 8, sorry. It's information. Because it's the first reading. Okay, thank you. Number 8, tuition, approval of tuition agreements for the 2026-27 school year between Valley City, Montpelier, Pingree Buchanan, and Ellendale. Is there a motion? Thank you, Mr. Meyer. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion for the approved tuition agreements? Discussion? Discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Other action, number 9, memorandum of understanding between Together Therapy and Wellness, which was attached to our board packet. Any background, Mr. Gaylor, or context?
Oh, just what I mentioned in the superintendent report, that we had identified a gap in that service, and we're able to provide that, and it's funded through the behavioral health, as well as families being able to be referred and provide services in school, students in school, through that MOU.
Thank you. Did we do a motion? I'm sorry. Is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Any further discussion on the memorandum of understanding with Together Therapy and Wellness? Any other discussion? Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Number 9, under other, Insight Investments lease buyout, which was another attachment to the agenda. And we determined these were for buying out the lease on 800-plus Chromebooks from the district. So is there a motion? Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion on the motion for the lease buyout of the Chromebooks? Sorry, Mr. Veldkamp. Any discussion? Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Moving on to Roman numeral 4, items for future agenda. Any items for future agenda? Dr. Larson.
I have two things. Well, one for future agenda for sure. We had a couple students that went to MIT this summer for an AI institute, wondering at the convenience of their schedule, if they'd be willing to come and tell us about their experience and what they learned at that conference.
Thank you.
And then the second thing is something that I didn't get accomplished is a school board photo to hang out in the entryway. I see that we are all here tonight, so we could take it, but with an upcoming election and those kinds of things, we tried a couple times and we had board members missing, and so whenever you think, President Rohr.
Okay, thank you. What are the board wishes on a photo? I actually had it jotted down in some of my thoughts, the same thing. But then my thought was to have someone come in and do the same headshot also for each board member. And I was going to talk with Mr. Gaylor about that, and I haven't yet. But anyone want to do a photo tonight? Okay, we'll be sure to communicate that. No, very true. Any other items for future agenda? Jamie.
But I do have a question. Is the monthly superintendent evaluation on Infinite Campus? Because that's where it takes me.
Yeah, we'll get that link corrected right after the meeting.
Any other items for future agenda? Okay, upcoming meetings. Tomorrow morning, back to school breakfast. August 18th, hard to believe it's here already, at the High School Commons at 7 a.m. School board meeting on Tuesday, September 8th at 5:30 right here in the community room. And the School Board Association Annual Convention in Bismarck on October 8th and October 9th, and I'm sure we'll be getting more info out on that shortly. Any other meetings that we can think of? Any other meetings? Seeing none, what is our direction on the superintendent evaluation? Wait a day or two, or to? Okay. Okay. So don't go home right away and do that. Let's wait till at least the morning. Well, you'll have to get up at 6 to do it then if you're going to wait till tomorrow. But no other business. I adjourn the meeting. Thank you.